Hello, everyone. Welcome to my Boomer Buddies podcast, where we tell it like it was and is. I'm your host, Rick Reed, and we got another great episode coming your way. We've got one of our best ever that comes on here, Trevor J. Brown, joining us, and we're going to talk about some music. First of all, Trevor, welcome back to the show.
Rick, it's always great to be on your show. I love coming on, talking music. Thanks for the invite.
Sure. And this is going to be a good one. I tasked Trevor with a pretty tough assignment. We're going to talk about our music favorites from the Boomer era. We call it the Mount Rushmore episode, and we're going to have three categories. Our favorite women singers, our favorite male singers, and our favorite groups or bands. This will be episode 1, featuring the Boomer era women. Going through that exercise was very tough for me, Trevor. How about you?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's tough to narrow things down. And we were texting the night before recording this. We both were kind of like, I'm going to switch my choices, like, because there's so many. And then someone else creeps into your brain and you're like, oh, I forgot about them. And then you're like, well, are we doing our personal favorites or the Mount Rushmore of all time? And you kind of said, no, it's your personal favorites. So it definitely was a challenge, but it was a fun challenge.
As soon as I clicked that pen last night into the off position, I wanted to change. I wanted to start over. But in fact, I missed a lot of the football because I was focused on doing this. So listeners and viewers out there, we enjoy music so much. It's so part of both of our lives. So it was kind of a labor of love, and we're excited to get into this. But remember, it's subjective. It's what we like. You know, the emotions we went through, our tastes. That's how we made the decision. So there's no wrong answers. We'd love it if you would send us yours. Just comment below, and we'll review it. And then it's human nature to go, oh, that's a terrible choice and all that. But you know what? That's the exercise that we chose to do, and we're going to do it now. Let's start with the women, Trevor, okay? And let's alternate our choices. We're going to do 4, and then we can mention some honorable mentions.
Well, and maybe we'll have some, because we haven't reviewed these off the air of who you have and who I have. So we may have some that overlap. But my first one, without a doubt, Queen of Soul, twice named by Rolling Stone as the greatest singer of all time, 75 million records sold. She charted 112 singles on the U.S. Billboard charts. She's an 18-time Grammy Award winner and the first female artist to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Miss Aretha Franklin.
She set the standard for others to follow. She is so good, and she did so many different things. Nobody can really copy it exactly. So respect. Love that song, Respect. And that was written by Otis Redding, and it's a number 1 for her. And that's probably my favorite of hers. And I love the fact that she was the first woman entering the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Respect is a great song. You mentioned written by Otis Redding. I Say a Little Prayer I wrote down. You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. I remember this was maybe a decade ago that she was playing, I think it was like the Kennedy Center Honors. And she comes out, they introduce her. It was something, no, maybe it was something for Carole King through the Kennedy Center Honors or something. She comes out and she's wearing this fur coat. She has this purse. She sits down at the piano. And then from the piano, then she gets up about halfway through the song and starts belting it out to sing. And she was the definition of a diva. And I say that with all due respect. Like, she was a diva. She knew the talent. She knew the power that she had. And her voice, just substance and soul. And it made you feel so many things. She was an icon, an absolute icon in so many different ways. And you just think of the legacy that she left behind. To me, it's her on top, and then everyone else kind of comes down after that. When you talk about Mount Rushmore, she just has something with her voice. It's tough to describe. I know that some people listening are like, well, what are you talking about? And it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just, she is who she is. And it's just that powerful.
That diva crown. She earned it and nobody can take it away from her. So, hey, we started off agreeing. She is on Mount Rushmore.
The other thing I'll say too is if you are somebody that wants to go on these shows like American Idol or The Voice, best of luck to you. I wish you well. But I always sort of laugh, Rick, when these people go on these shows and they're like, I'm going to sing this song by Aretha Franklin. Or if you take somebody new, like, I'm going to sing this song by Adele. And I'm always like, good luck. I mean, some people do a very solid job with it or whatever, but you're putting yourself behind the eight ball right away. If you're coming out and saying, I'm going to sing a song done by Aretha, you're going to have to change it up or do something because you're probably not going to match what she did with her version. If you can kind of mix it up a little bit, sure, but I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah. Well, I'll go next with the second one. And this may surprise some as a Mount Rushmore, but again, it's how she made me feel when she sang. And I'm a nostalgic guy. You probably all have figured that out if you're regular watchers and listeners. But this is Cass Elliott. I loved her voice. It would give me chills. And she was also known as Mama Cass. Her powerful voice and harmonies, it gave me goosebumps, seriously. Words of love. She had a little flair and pizzazz in her performances, and her voice could show emotion, powerful and tender. So she is number 2 on my list, and her personality also was infectious, and she was well liked. And let's see, Dream a Little Dream of Me. That's an old standard, I think from back in the 30s, maybe even the 20s. And she brought it back to life in the 60s. And definitely she is someone that I would want to hear on a desert island. Cass Elliott.
Well, and some of the work that they did in the Mamas and the Papas, the vocal arrangements, and I love Mamas and the Papas. Whenever I hear that type of music, it just reminds me of California, California dreaming, it's perfect. It takes you to a time and a place. And I'm not a boomer. I wasn't around then, but it's interesting how music can pick you up and set you down in an era that you weren't even around in. I wasn't even close to being born yet, but yet I feel I was there. And I think that when music, or even in other mediums like film, can transport you to that time when you weren't there, that shows you how special that medium is, and incredible voice.
From when I was, about 9 until 13, where she basically was the most popular. She was larger than life. She was a big woman, and she had a big personality, a big voice, big talent. That's why she's on my Mount Rushmore for the female singers.
Love it. Okay, this next one might surprise you. She's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, number 21 on Rolling Stone's list of the 200 greatest singers that was released in 2023. Nina Simone. Love Nina Simone's voice. The first time I ever heard songs like Feeling Good, My Baby Just Cares for Me, I Put a Spell on You, it's like something you wouldn't expect. You would never, I guess, expect that voice from her. But then when you hear it, it's something so unique. And you watch a lot of these shows now, like on The Voice or American Idol, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. But if someone like that would come on today, you'd be like, holy smokes. The register of that voice is just very different than what you would normally hear. And I would like to say back 2022, there was a release that came out called Feeling Good, her greatest hits and remixes. And of course, like Feeling Good is on there. My Baby Just Cares for Me, I Put a Spell on You, all of her hits. But what I like about the remixes is they strip the original vocal from the original track. And an example is My Baby Just Cares for Me. It's to more of a kind of a hip hop beat, I guess, or more upbeat. And it kind of reminds me in a way of what George Martin did when they did Love by the Beatles, the Cirque du Soleil thing in Vegas, where it took all of the Beatles vocals and they remixed them with some of the other tracks that weren't necessarily, so it would take Strawberry Fields Forever and it would take the vocal and put it on a different track, and somehow it worked. But I like that in a way, Rick, because then it also opens up an audience. You know, it could be a new audience to, at that, for Love, it was the Beatles. And now for Nina Simone, it's this remix album where they might hear the remix if they're a little bit younger and they say, well, that's really cool. And then they go to the actual song and they're like, oh, it's a totally different version. So they're getting exposed to this incredible talent that was Nina Simone through a new age of music. So Nina is on my Mount Rushmore.
All right, I'm going to check her out a little bit more. I didn't really know that much about her. Thanks for bringing her forward. All right, my third pick is somebody that had really a couple different careers, and I'm so glad she did. She was a very successful pop song writer with her husband, Jerry Goffin, Tin Pan Alley in New York, and then she later had a solo career. Choice for this round is Carole King.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, that Tapestry album, it was huge when I was in high school, and a lot of my fellow students liked her as well. She was a phenom, and she's still a phenom. And I looked it up, but I think that album is still a top album in the oldies circuit as far as people still buying it, or maybe their fifth copy of it, right? She had so many hits. Let's see, I Feel the Earth Move, It's Too Late, Jazz Man, So Far Away, Sweet Seasons. Every time I mention one of those, I get a different emotion. Because, you know, when you're in high school, Trev, a lot of things are new and happening as far as your life. So music really plugged into me with what I was going through. And Carole was front and center for me in that time. So Carole King.
It's interesting you bring that up. I had a conversation over the weekend. I was talking with somebody about movies, and I'm like, I can't necessarily tell you why I like this movie as much as I do and why it's in my top 10, because I think part of it is like circumstantial. It's environmental. It's you were in the right place at the right time, and those things rubbed off on you. And we probably hold certain things in higher regard. Not Tapestry, because Tapestry is one of the greatest albums of all time, but there may be some things that are like, really? That's one of your favorite things? Well, yeah, because it was a certain place at a certain time, and I felt this way, and I was going through this, or I was going through that, and that's what's special. That's kind of what makes a favorite a favorite. But no, I mean, nobody would argue with Carole King, and especially her record Tapestry. It's one of the best.
Yeah. All right. What do you have?
I'm next going to go with, she was a member of the best charting female group in history, 12 number ones on the U.S. Billboard 100. This lady also won a Golden Globe for her performance in Lady Sings the Blues in 1972. And she is the queen of Motown, Rick, Diana Ross.
Oh, that's a great choice.
I love Diana Ross. I mean, solo-wise, I know this is, I think, a little bit later than what we were going for, but her songs, I'm Coming Out, I know before, this was in the 70s, but her version of Ain't No Mountain High Enough was huge. Her work with the Supremes. There would be no girl groups like Destiny's Child from the 2000s or any of these other groups that were around. They owe everything to the Supremes and Diana Ross. They were amazing. I mean, absolutely incredible. Vocal-wise, entertaining-wise. She was named Female Entertainer of the Century by Billboard. That was in 1976. She's a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. My favorite song of hers, though, is one with the Supremes, Stop in the Name of Love. I've given musical presentations before, and you could say this with a lot of things, Rick, but imagine being in that studio and you're on one side of the glass and you're controlling the board, and then on the other side of the glass you got Diana Ross and the Supremes, and they're starting to sing Stop in the Name of Love. When you're sitting there, you just got to be like, holy smokes, we got a hit on our hands, right? Like, this is absolutely incredible. These ladies are gorgeous. They're genius. They have the talent. We're going to number one here, folks.
Well, I can remember being a youngin' watching the Ed Sullivan Show, and Ed really took to them. They were on there a few times, and it was something you didn't see every day. But I didn't know any different, and it was amazing to me. And then it was only later on you find out that was covering some new ground right there. But she had charisma, too. She was a diva as well,
Yes.
with the hair flying all over and everything. I have to still rank Aretha as the big diva. But yeah, that was a great choice, Diana Ross. Yeah, I look back fondly on all the old appearances, the Temptations and the Supremes when they'd be together. That was an amazing thing too.
Well, you mentioned Ed Sullivan. For listeners out there, I wasn't around then, so I have to go to YouTube to watch a lot of these, but I've gone down the rabbit hole of, watching some of these for the first time. And Diana Ross and the Supremes, and there's some James Brown performances that'll just blow your mind. Jackson 5. There's someone on here too that's on my Mount Rushmore that I don't want to give away, but her performance on Ed Sullivan. Go and watch those, because I feel like TV today, we could use a new Ed Sullivan where it really specializes in seeing those performances, because you don't get those performances on TV anymore.
No, you don't. No politics, just entertainment. And can you imagine me, Trevor, seeing all of these things as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 7-year-old? The Jackson 5, I was a little older then, but that was still exciting.
Yeah.
As a 12-year-old. And that was the best thing for us, was the Ed Sullivan Show. And of course, the Beatles, everybody knows about that, but I witnessed that. I have memories of that, emotions of that. Okay, I'm going to go to my fourth one. And I'm just going to let you know I'm going to do a fifth as well, because I couldn't do just 4.
I had 5 written too, so.
Okay, good. Dusty Springfield.
Okay.
She's British, and she had such an amazing voice and stage presence, and I just loved her stuff. I Only Want to Be With You was a great song. Wishin' and a Hopin'. You Don't Have to Say You Love Me, which was amazing. That was in 66, that one. But she was part of the Springfields, Silver Threads and Golden Needles. That was the hit they had. And her voice was piercingly beautiful. I just liked her look on stage. And it turns out she was blind as a bat, so she was up there singing and she couldn't see, kind of like John Lennon, I just loved her voice. When I was a little kid and I'd hear her voice and I'd have it in my head running home from the neighbors where I heard it, so it was in my head, and I'd sing the song to myself. Probably looked pretty weird to people when I was on my way home. But she was very memorable for my childhood. But I have her up there because I could listen to her all the time.
My next one, they call her the Queen of Rock and Roll. Sold over 100 million records worldwide, 12 Grammy Awards. She's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Some of my favorite appearances on the Ed Sullivan Show, Tina Turner.
There you go.
Tina Turner, Proud Mary, Ed Sullivan Show with Ike Turner. You want to watch a performance? Watch that. Not only great vocal, but the dancing, the choreography that they did, something special. And she also had one heck of a solo career too. I love the song What's Love Got to Do with It. I know that's more 80s.
Boomers listen to that.
What's Love Got to Do with It? When you're talking about records, Rick, to me, the first track on an album is very important because you have to grab their attention. But the second song on a record might be even more important, because now it's like, what kind of ride are you in for? What's Love Got to Do with It is track 2 on Private Dancer for Tina Turner. And to me, that just sets the tone for the album. You get the album opener, that establishes the tone, it's upbeat. But then when it gets into track 2, you're like, okay, here we go. Now we're in for business. And that album was massive. It went multi-times platinum. I sort of look at that too when you're going to a concert. You want to grab their attention with the first song, with the lead off, but what's track 2? And I remember like Paul McCartney Driving USA tour. He opens with Hello Goodbye. So he brings you in with this huge, huge song. And then what do they go into for track 2? The big old song Jet. And that just tells you right there, like, you are in for a journey. You are in for entertainment. You are ready to go. And they're going to bring you the best show humanly possible. Track 2 can break you on an album too, but What's Love Got to Do with It? It's one of the best placements on an album, in my opinion. Sequencing on an album, Rick, nobody ever talks about it, but it's super important.
That's so true. That's so true. You can tell you were a DJ too. That's great insight, actually.
Thank you.
Our guest today is Trevor J. Brown. He's got a long and storied career podcaster for how many years?
Been doing podcasts for a decade. The show has been called about 950 different things. We started off as it was called Another Round with Trevor Brown, and then it went to the Trevor J. Brown Show, and now it's just the Inherent Dream podcast. So we sort of consolidated everything in the last month, and it's the Inherent Dream podcast, and just do things our own way. We're on our website, inherentdream.com. You can come there and listen to us, and hopefully you like it. If you don't, that's okay too. We're not for everybody, but we have really good interviews, and we talk about music and film and sports, and we have some commentary on life, and it's just, the world is rather confusing and kind of a dark place right now. And sometimes we talk about heavy things, Rick, but also my main thing as we come into 2026 is I want to have a spot where people can come, and if you want to unplug for 20 minutes with us 3 days a week and eat your dinner or have a cold drink and just sort of unplug and relax. I mean, keep your computer plugged in to listen to us, but just, it's not so heavy. It's not so important. We just try to have fun and try to be a better place. And if I can provide some entertainment to people for 20 minutes, 3 days a week, that's awesome. Come along, inherentdream.com.
And you don't have any thing over your head like YouTube. I got to be careful about copyright infringements and things like that. You just go to your website at inherentdream.com/podcast. Trevor had me on as a guest last Wednesday, and it was a wonderful experience. And so I'm returning the favor here. Trevor, you just do such a great job on your show. Go check it out. We're talking about the Mount Rushmore for women right now. I'll do my fifth. In many ways, it's probably my favorite. Karen Carpenter.
Yes.
She has a pure, perfect voice. She's a sweetheart. Close to You was number one in 1970. We've Only Just Begun was number two. It's hard to believe it was number two. It should have been number one. For All We Know, Rainy Days and Mondays, Superstar. What a song. Hurting Each Other. It's going to take some time. Top of the World. Please, Mr. Postman. That was kind of an ode to the Marvelettes and the Beatles, So that was nice. And her brother Richard was just a musical genius as well. As a family group together, they could have been on there as well, as far as I'm concerned. But Karen Carpenter, and she was one hell of a drummer.
And we lost her way too soon. How young was she when she passed?
She died in 1983 of heart failure due to anorexia. 1983. Gone too soon. So that was my fifth.
My fifth is somebody who we also lost too soon. She died at 30, and in 1973 was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. She was the first female to be inducted. Patsy Cline. Just a voice that has been described as haunting, powerful, emotional. Everyone knows her for the song Crazy, written by Willie Nelson, Walking After Midnight. But to me, my favorite Patsy Cline song, and it ain't even close, She's Got You. That song, you listen to her vocal, you just feel the emotion on that. You just feel it. And she was somebody that you think of what more she would have done in her career. She had so many hits in just a short amount of time, and then died in, it was a plane crash, I believe. Gone too soon, another one there, Patsy Cline.
I'm going to name some honorable mentions, and then we'll have to wrap up this edition. My honorable mentions for Mount Rushmore positions for the females: Linda Ronstadt, Ann Wilson from Heart. She came in the 70s. Carly Simon. I just love her stuff. It made you think. You're So Vain. There's so many guys that think it's them.
And who was somebody who did a backup vocal on You're So Vain?
Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
And he thought he was the guy. Dionne Warwick, I absolutely love, and she could have been one of the five. And then, of course, Stevie Nicks. And I'm stopping there. I could keep going and going and going. So just to recap, mine were Aretha Franklin, Cass Elliott, Carole King, Dusty Springfield, Karen Carpenter and my honorable mentions.
Do a Mount Rushmore, but it actually ends up being like 2.5 Mount Rushmores with honorable ones. That's how hard it is. I'll give you a recap
Yes.
of mine, and then I'll give you 2 honorable mentions I have. So I had Aretha Franklin, Nina Simone, Diana Ross, Tina Turner, Patsy, Cline, and my 2 honorable mentions, they're not in this era, but these 2 would be on my Mount Rushmore if we were doing like your honest Mount Rushmore all time, no decade restriction. One of my favorite artists of all time, men or women, is Janet Jackson. I love Janet Jackson, and she's had one heck of a career. You think of all the hits that she's had. Honestly, it's tough to compare because her brother was Michael Jackson, but Janet Jackson has had just as good of a career as her brother in many aspects. And another one is Norah Jones. I've always been a fan of Norah Jones. She's very talented and beautiful, and she's also an actress, and she's an incredible singer, and those 2 would be on my Mount Rushmore. I don't know who they'd knock off, honestly, if we were doing like, this is all time. I mean, if we're doing all time, for sure, Aretha is cemented on my Mount Rushmore because of, I mean, she's the queen. I mean, she's the diva. She's the standard. So, but definitely a fun exercise, Rick. And again, the thing is that when you put together this list the first time, by 20 minutes later, you're starting to rethink some things because it's challenging. And we love so many different kinds of music. We're not just into rock and roll. We're not just into this or that. There's so many different genres. There's so many different artists, so many different voices. And it's so special to think about these things.
This was a subjective list. Viewers and listeners, remember, there's no right or wrong. This is just our taste, our opinions. We would love it if you would do a list or give us some comments about who you would like to have seen on there. And go ahead, comment below on YouTube here. It's so easy just to do that. And we would love to see it, and we'll get back to you too. Well, Trevor, this was fun. We're going to do a couple more shows. We're going to do Mount Rushmore with male singers, and we're also going to do Mount Rushmore with groups or bands. And there's so many. So we're going to go through the same exercise with those. So thank you so much. Again, like, share, comment, subscribe. We're so glad that you joined us today. Trevor, any parting words?
Thanks again, Rick, for having me on. It's always a lot of fun.
Check out his podcast, inherentdream.com/podcast. For Trevor J. Brown, I'm Rick Reed for My Boomer Buddies podcast. Until next time, we'll see you
around the block.